we were actually responding to an ambush of one of our sister squads in another platoon. We were actually only about a click out, give or take. And so we're going to help them out because they're under, ambush and everything. And then the next thing, we know right before we get onto the hardball road, there's orange, I feel heat, and then it's black.
Welcome to How I Embraced the Suck, a podcast where you get to hear from veterans what life in the military is really like. I am your host, Walt, and before we start, you should know that I do not censor the show in any way. You have been warned. Yeah. No, I was saying I was just listening back to the song "Filth," and that was pretty moving. I like it. It's having never been there, obviously, but it's like that's kind of tough to hear. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a little hard. Writing it was hard.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I thought it came across pretty well though. I was impressed. I like music.
Thank you.
I've never been much of a instrumental music type of person. Like I need the lyrics to say something. I'm too dumb to hear the words of the music. So I want some actual English. But
English is definitely good to use.
Yeah. All these instrumental, classical music or whatever. I'm just like, very cool. It's good background music. It's not my thing. But no, this is gonna be fun. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. I
think let's just jump right into it. So today we have Craig, a former Marine, and now, well, probably always has been a metalhead, but definitely a metalhead now.
Yeah,
and I say that knowing nothing about the whole metal genre, but yeah. So what's up?
Doing okay. Just been in a little bit of a long weekend, been spending some time with my kids, and just trying to enjoy as much as I can. I mean, it's pretty much the only time you get off is the weekends these days, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah. Thanks for carving out some time and hopping on. So what's your tell a listener what's your military background?
So military background, I joined the Marine Corps in 2003, signed up, volunteered to be infantry. That was actually my enlistment. Went to boot camp, did that number, and then once I finished all my infantry training, I was assigned with 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines out in 29 Palms, California. I did a 4-year stint with those guys. Through that time, I did 2 deployments to Iraq, one in 2004, one in 2005. So quick turnaround. It was during the whole kind of surge era back then, around the election times and things like that. So they were kind of pushing us out about once a year, just about, it seemed. And then after I got done with that, I left active duty, but kind of missed rolling around in the dirt, playing with guns, basically being a glorified Boy Scout. And so I decided to go back into the reserves in a unit here in Utah that was infantry. They were 4th LAR, and I was with them for a couple years, and eventually finally got out after a knee injury in 2010.
Okay. Wow. So were you infantry when you were in the regular?
Yes, I was. I was assigned 0331 machine gunner. Did infantry the whole time. Unfortunately, machine gunners aren't in LAR, even though they do have machine guns. So I had to be a straight leg labeled as an 0311, just regular infantryman. But one of the cool things that I got to do when I was there is I actually got to help out as a combat experienced Marine, because they didn't have really any combat experience left in their unit. I got to teach him basically
Mm,
a lot of the infantry tactics and things that I'd learned firsthand when I was overseas in Iraq. Which they actually ended up getting slotted with orders to go to Afghanistan. So I'd like to think that some of that training that I helped provide it, helped them out.
oh, okay. So they got deployed after you had departed or after you'd separated. You're saying.
So I was actually about to get cut orders myself. I'd
Mm,
actually only had a little bit of time left on my contract, but I was going to do a voluntary extension so that I could deploy with them since I had helped train them. But I
sure.
ended up having a knee injury when we were training. So lovely training accident due to two combat deployments. Scratches, bruises, things like that, but no like super serious. No arms or legs blown off or anything like that.
Hmm.
But we were doing a training exercise. Somebody fell into my knee, popped my knee out of place, tore some ligaments and all that kind of stuff. And so thus ended my Marine Corps career.
Ouch. Yeah, there's not much
Yeah, it
you
was
can do
not
after
fun.
that.
Yeah, I remember just
Wow.
kind of seeing stars and, waking up on the ground and just kind of like, what the heck just happened? And knee the size of a softball and all that kind of stuff. And we were
Oh
actually in
wow.
Morocco at the time for our annual training. And so no access to MRI machines. Literally nothing. We were doing some bilateral training with the Moroccan army. And so we were out in the middle of the Moroccan desert, just, chilling. And here I am with this busted knee. So I basically got put on camp watch duty and got to sit on an MRE crate, for the last few days of when we were there.
Wow.
Fly back to the States and, we find out that I've torn some ligaments and everything like that. And I've been hobbling around for, I think it was like 3 or 4 days with this busted knee.
Wow. Oh man. That's tough. Yeah, so you're just sitting there
Yeah.
nursing your knee like,
Uh, I
can
mean,
I just go home now?
it would have been nice. And then, when you do anything where you go overseas too, if you bring your own equipment, you got to like wash it and everything because of, all the customs and, so you got to make sure that you're not bringing back camel spiders or, any flora,
Oh,
fauna,
sure.
anything like that. So, and so I'm sitting there bored because I'm on light duty. They're not going to let me go
Right.
and start using pressure washers and, getting stuff loaded up back up onto the ships and things like that. So basically, I got to sit there and help my friends, my buddies in my fire team and stuff, clean their rifles so that they could get packed up into the crates to go while they did all the pressure washing stuff and,
Sure.
packing everything up and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh man. The medic giving you an aspirin and a drink of water didn't quite cut it for that one.
No, no, definitely not. I think probably the hardest part of it was waking up in the middle of the night if you had to go and take a whiz, because our latrine was easily like 100 yards away, and
Oh
especially when I
man.
first injured my knee, like I could barely walk. Um, so I had to sit there and hop like 100 yards just to go and get to the head and try
Right.
to take a leak or whatever, and or brush my teeth, any of that kind of stuff because the whole hygiene area was over in the same spot. And so, yeah, I was, it was an experience to say the least.
Wow. That's a bummer.
Yeah. I probably would have been a full 20 guy too. When I was 14 years old, I think I was about 14, maybe I was 15, somewhere
Hmm.
around there. I had actually contacted my first recruiter. And they're like, you're just a little teeny bit too young, but here's a poster. And, they started sending me annual posters after that. So, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to join the Marine Corps and everything. And
Right.
even though I had some, issues with some of the things that, you have to do in the military, it typically has to be somebody else's kid. And I didn't want it to be somebody else's kid. And
Sure.
on top of that, I was good at my job. I'm not saying that I was like God's gift to the Marine Corps or anything like that, but, I was a good machine
Right.
gunner. I was accurate. I could teach people. I had experience. I was able to pass some of that stuff on. And if I would have been able to get another, extension in there, re-enlist, then, maybe I could have gone and been, some kind of, School of Infantry trainer or maybe a drill instructor, something along those lines where I can pass on that experience and knowledge to younger generations so that they would be able to continue on.
Hmm.
I mean, one of the things that I actually do kind of enjoy about the United States military compared to a lot of other militaries around the world is that we're actually an all volunteer force. I mean,
Oh,
granted, the
sure.
selective service and whatnot does exist, but people are actually, the stepping forward and volunteering their time. They're not forced to do it, at least not, since Vietnam.
Sure.
And I was actually one of those kids too. 9/11 happened when I was in high school. That was actually what kind of sealed the deal for me that was going to be the direction I was going to go, was military. And I do remember, when the towers were struck and everything, going and talking to my mom and dad that night. I didn't come straight home from school. I kind of had to go up into the mountains here in Utah and just kind of collect my thoughts in the foothills for a little bit, kind of look at the scenery for a minute, just kind of gather myself. And that's when I came to the decision. And I walked up to my mom and dad later that evening, sat them down, and I'm like, look, I'm going to be, of age soon enough. And as soon as I'm done with high school, I'm going to join the military anyways. So how would you guys like to sign my papers?
Right.
Because I was still 17 at the time.
Huh.
Actually, it was a little bit before I was 17, but
you were prepping
I
them.
literally
You were
was
laying the
turning
groundwork.
17 the following month.
Yeah.
Yep.
Huh.
Because September is when it happened. October is when I turned 17. And so I was just like,
wow.
let's go ahead and get that signed up.
Wow.
I want my paper signed. And, they did the parent thing. Let's think about it. This is a really big decision. You don't want to rush it. And I get where they're coming from. They knew that, it was a wartime situation. And that I was literally asking to go to war.
Right.
And 17-year-old doesn't know any better. We don't know what it's like over there or anything like that. Everything's just movies for us. And but I kept bugging them, week after week, month after month. And then finally in about July, after I turned 17, in between my junior and senior year, my mom and dad, they took me out on Bear Lake up in northern Utah. And they decided to break the news to me then, while I was out there kind of, just chilling out on the water, rocking in the waves. And they're like, Craig, you've made a lot of really stupid adult level decisions as a teenager, sneaking out of the house, stuff like that, causing us some hell. But out of all of the things that you've talked about and all the things that you've done, this is one that we can honestly say that we're proud of, that you're making. And we would be happy to have your recruiter come by when we get back from Bear Lake and sign your papers.
Huh. Yeah. They wanted you to consider the gravity of it, but then once you seemed set, they were, that's pretty cool.
Oh, I never let up on them. I mean, I was in the JROTC program in high school.
Okay.
So I loved everything about it, kind of the more regimented structure, and everything like that.
Sure.
Like I said before, the kind of glorified Boy Scout kind of mentality of things. And I'd been talking to recruiters, and, they boosted it up a lot. I mean, I remember the Sergeant Watkins, he was actually my recruiter. He was telling me about like going on a Westpac float, and how, you're going to have all these Australian babes that are like throwing tennis balls at you with their phone number, and you go and you meet up with them, and they're going to, pamper you and take you home, and they're all hot. And I mean,
right.
What's not to like for a 17-year-old kid?
Right.
Plus
He
you look
knows what
snazzy in the
language
dress
you're talking.
And
Wow.
it's like 17-year-old kid, I was all about it. And so I was hooked, and, watching all the motivational recruiting videos, and I had all the posters up on my wall. Like I said, I've been talking to him since I was like 14, 15 years old. I was ready to rock and roll. I'd been studying the rank structures. I'd been studying all the general orders. Like I was dead set before I'd even signed up that I was going to be a Marine, and nothing was going to stop me.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's pretty neat. And then you're like, it's July and it's going to be over by Christmas, so I need to get my chance.
Yeah. I mean, I'd actually worked with my recruiter as well as my school to actually graduate early so that I could go to boot camp sooner. And
Oh,
like I pushed really hard to get all my grades done, get all my required credits, everything like that, so that they could ship me off and go do my thing. Like I was done sitting around. I was ready to be an adult and this, that, and the other. So
huh.
um, unfortunately, though, the school, one of my teachers decided to not enter things correctly. And so I didn't have one of my computer credits. So I didn't end up graduating until June, anyways. Well, technically, May. But
Right.
so I basically had to sit around while they tried to fix that. I didn't get a walk with my class, like none of that kind of stuff,
Sure.
because I figured I was already going to be in boot camp. Didn't order a gown, didn't order a cap, none of that kind of stuff. So that was that. And 2 weeks after my class graduated, I ended up heading out. And
Hmm.
while a couple of other guys ended up following on after me, like about 6 months later or so, when they decided to sign up and get their ship dates, I was actually the only one in my graduating class that went on the Marine side
Okay.
at that time. So there was two other guys that ended up joining up with the Marines as well. I believe it was two that were my grade, but they didn't end up shipping out to boot camp until later on. I saw one of them in passing. He was a brand new guy in boot camp, still had to go through the experience as I was getting ready to graduate the following day. And the other one, he ended up going in a month later, and I ended up bumping into him in the fleet later on.
Huh.
And just like, holy cow, I didn't think you were going to join the Marine Corps, dude. Like, so just kind of cool there.
Yeah.
But yeah, interestingly enough, as long as we're on kind of boot camp, just kind of a cool little Marine Corps story about, my background. So when I got my Eagle Globe and Anchor, like when you're actually considered a Marine, there's a whole ceremony and everything. Your drill instructor gives you your, Eagle Globe and Anchor in your hand, shakes your hand, tells you congratulations, Marine, and then you get to put it in your hat and everything, and then you get to go see your family, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
It's the ceremony before the actual graduation. But that actually occurred for me on September 11th. So the reason why I joined
Oh,
the military was actually the day that I got my Eagle Globe and Anchor.
right. Well, that's interesting.
And so that, in a way, yeah, in a way, I'm actually kind of happy, or at least I was kind of proud that I got delayed on my ship date, because if I would have gone when, I originally had planned to in like February, March timeframe, then I wouldn't have had that opportunity. And I ended up being actually part of the first group of Marines that became Marines on September 11th since the attacks had happened.
Sure. Sure.
And so it kind of was a little bit more pomp and circumstance, because they actually mentioned those kinds of things, that we were the generation that stepped forward to volunteer to go to war. And we were actually becoming Marines on the day for the reason why we signed up.
Right.
So it was kind of just a little bit more of a solemn occasion for us. And so I thought that was pretty neat, that coincidentally kind of happened.
Well, and especially being the first year after, probably every single person there had almost the exact same reason, or at least it was a massive reason for them joining. It was like if it happened today,
Oh, yeah.
kids wouldn't even remember it necessarily happening.
Yeah,
But
it seems that way. They're pretty distracted. They might just be looking on their phones playing Candy Crush or something.
yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
I actually remember one of the guys I went to boot camp with. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, okay. I was just
You were going to say something.
yeah, when you joined up. No, you go ahead. I'll just make a note. I'll just
Oh,
go ahead. Sorry.
yeah,
One of the
no
guys
problem.
you went to boot camp with.
I was just going to say, kind of to tie into what you were saying, he actually was 27 years old when he joined the Marine Corps.
Whoa.
And he was another 9/11 guy, but he was a teacher and everything, and he left his professional career to go and sign up.
Sure.
And he had to pass a lot more medical waivers and things like that because of his age and whatnot. But he was able to pass everything finally, and he was actually in my boot camp platoon and crossed that line with me. And
wow.
we called him the grand old man of the Marine Corps and everything like that because, obviously he's a lot older than all of us by almost a decade, and
right.
but just a really good guy. And it was cool to see that it wasn't just us young 17, 18-year-old kids that were, squaring up the hand and volunteering. I mean, there were people that literally had careers already established that were squaring up,
Sure.
their hand and going in. And I thought that was actually pretty amazing. A lot of people talk about how, September 11th was tragedy, but September 12th was kind of the day we all came back together. And I wish we could go back to kind of that mentality, but without the tragedy.
Hmm.
It was really true in that sense. We were all coming together for the same kind of thing,
Yeah.
for varying reasons, varying backgrounds, but we were all united with one purpose. And we were all doing what we could do to try to help out in whatever way we could, whether it was donating to the Red Cross, whether it was, joining the military, whether it was, you know, picking some way that you could help another person. And for a
Hmm.
while, a couple of years, it was like that. And just kind of missed that.
Yeah. Yeah. The camaraderie of it, the unity. Huh.
Yeah.
So when you, as you were saying, there a whole lot of people joined up around that time. Did you have to fight for a slot, or were they just taking anybody? What was the recruiting like?
Um, back then, because they were actually expanding the Marine Corps, it was pretty much open
Mm,
to anybody as long as you didn't have a major criminal background, or, like any kind of major medical issue, things of that nature. I
okay.
mean, and they were giving out waivers left and right because we needed bodies. They knew that, I mean, literally about what, 3 months before I went to boot camp, we also got involved in Iraq. And so they knew that Marines were going to be cycling through things because we were still in Afghanistan. We were getting ready to do another war. So, they decided to expand around that time from, I think it was like 180,000 Marines up to like 220,000. And
Oh
so,
wow.
and you had all these other guys that were coming up at the end of their enlistments as well that didn't want to continue on. They did their time, they did their
Sure.
stuff, and then they retirees. So they got to fill back in, those empty spaces as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, especially if, not to knock them, but some guys, they were in the military in the 80s and the 90s, and there's not a lot of combat, and they might have enjoyed that. And then they're looking ahead and they're like, okay, we're literally going to war, and I'm approaching. I'm ready to retire. I just as soon not go to a combat zone. So that makes sense that people would maybe be jumping out. Huh? That's a good point, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had a gunnery sergeant, my company gunny, and also had my platoon sergeant. They were both Gulf War guys back when they were lance corporals and PFCs. And so they had actually, crossed those same berms that Marines, when I was going in, were going to be crossing,
Yeah.
or had crossed, I should say.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, my battalion, they missed out on the invasion. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say unfortunately because war, does suck.
Right.
But,
Right.
obviously with kind of that mentality of the infantry Marine, they were ticked off. They ended up getting stuck over in Okinawa because of the stop loss and stop move that was signed by W. And so they couldn't move from Okinawa to go and do Afghanistan or the invasion for
Oh,
Iraq.
right.
So they ended up basically stuck twice. When 9/11 happened, they were stuck over in Okinawa. And then a couple years later, they had cycled back over. And then the orders came down to hit Iraq. And there was a stop loss stop move there again. And so they ended up stuck in Okinawa twice.
In Oki
My
of all
senior guys were telling
places.
me all about it. Yeah, and I mean it's cool at first, because you're in a different country and everything like that. But then you're stuck on an island, you're far away from home, and it's an island. You
Yeah.
can only cross it so many times before things get boring. And they were telling me basically it was just barracks boredom by the time they finally got to come back.
I bet.
And that was about 2 months after we got dropped into their unit, or before we got dropped into their unit. And so they were ready to, they were chomping at the bit
Right.
to
Right.
be able to go and do something, anything. And I mean, I went from infantry school, graduating in November, and our orders were cut to be deployed for the first part of the security and stability operations in '04. The invasion's winding down and everything like that about a year later. And so now we're starting to try to build the rapport with Iraqi people and everything. And so our orders come
Sure.
in February. And so I literally only had a couple months to train with these guys. And half the time you're doing all the legal paperwork, like your will and making sure that your SGLI is all, set up and everything. And, you'll have to excuse my dogs. um, here we are, 18, 19 years old. We actually had one guy that was getting ready to deploy with us that was 17 years old. Was back before they put the regulation where you couldn't be 17 and go to combat anymore.
Oh yeah.
And we're writing our wills to our moms and dads, or whatever family we've got alive. Some guys raised by their grandparents, whatever. And we're kids. And that's when reality started setting in for us. Like, oh my gosh, I'm literally signing papers saying that if I die,
Right.
this X is going to happen. This money is going to go to my mom and dad.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of crazy. And I remember, just kind of the butterflies in the stomach and everything that night before we were about to deploy. And, we were going to be getting on the buses the next morning. And I sent the last, phone call to my, my mom and dad, my brother and my sisters, my girlfriend at the time, all that kind of stuff. And, basically telling him goodbye. And that was going to be the last time that I talked to him for, a few weeks until we actually got in country. It was just a really crazy feeling. Like I just literally boxed up my phone, put it in the post office to mail back home. And that was that.
Huh. And imagine, yeah, I mean that's crazy. But imagine today, if the exact same situation was to happen today, just in that span of 20 years almost, or a little more, I guess, the reliance on phones and electronic communication is so much greater. I'd just be, I can't imagine that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I try to avoid.
They didn't even really have digital cameras.
Right. Right.
I mean, anything digital was like $400, and it was, not even anything close to what smartphones can take pictures of these days. So like when we were taking pictures, like the motivational, unit pictures of everything, when we're all, doing our oorah poses and everything like that, they were all on those little old Kodak, wind cameras and stuff like that.
Yep. Yep.
And then they've got all those fancy technology things and everything like that. All kind. Everybody's got night vision now. Everybody's got RCOs on their M16s. We were still running iron sights. We were still, I was issued an Alice pack.
Oh, wow.
Just eventually a Molly pack came available, but like when I first got to the fleet, I was issued an Alice pack. I mean that's.
Wow.
We were right in the transition of going into the digital camouflage. So half of us were in digital camis. Some of us were in the, tricolors.
Oh yeah.
Some guys still had their black boots. Some of us had tan boots. It was a hodgepodge.
Huh.
Eventually, as the deployment wore on, everybody got converted into the digital camis and the desert boots and everything like that. But, we didn't get the cool, ILB systems or the, flak jackets that have like all the cool little accessories and stuff. None of that kind of stuff. We were still using web gear in some cases.
Wow.
It was just really crazy. But we did it. And I also remember when we were on deployment, that first go, we were in Bedouin tents for a good portion of it. And on top of that, we didn't have the, up armor Humvees and everything like they got now, and the whatever Bearcats or whatever they call them these days or whatever.
Sure.
We were running in thin-skinned regular Humvees, patrolling and going and looking for bad guys. And there were times where I wondered, how in the hell did we survive this? Because you'd come out and there'd be trucks looking like Swiss cheese, and thankfully
Wow.
we didn't lose a whole ton of guys. We lost 9 on that deployment. But it was just crazy. And I don't know how we ended up, not getting cut to shreds in some of these, situations. not just my squad, but everybody through our battalion. I mean, we were literally taking steel plates and welding them on our Humvees ourselves, and we got these Kevlar blanket kits that we were putting down, on this draping over the sides of the 4-pack Humvees and high back Humvees and stuff like that, and I mean, we were putting sandbags in the bottom of our Humvees, so shrapnel wasn't coming up from underneath from some of the IEDs and mines and stuff that they were planting. And so we just ponder sometimes, like, how the hell?
Yeah. That's wild.
And I mean, back then too, we weren't even just dealing with the Al Qaeda types and whatnot. We were dealing with regular army. These guys were trained to use mortars, rockets, ambush tactics, all that kind of stuff. And so we were actually dealing with guys that may not have quite as much equipment, but they at least had the basic training. I mean, we were, they were able to actually fight. They did a lot of ghosting tactics with, quick strike ambushes and stuff like that, and then melt back. But they knew what they were doing. At least they knew how to set up an L-shaped ambush. They knew how to, set up a mortar team and be able to bracket, to do their firing. My first enemy contact was actually getting bracketed by enemy mortars.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we go out to go and take care of an IED. We're escorting EOD out. And next thing I know, we hear boom, boom. And it's like, where the hell was fire in the hole? Because the last couple weeks we'd heard fire in the hole before they, blow up the IEDs. And then all of a sudden it goes from those two explosions to ba-boom, 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 and they're walking them through our Humvees.
Oh, so you were set up on the IED
and
ready for them to blow it.
To basically... Yeah, the EOD was up there in their suits and everything. They had placed the charges and all that kind of stuff to blow up the round. And so we thought the EOD detonated the charge without saying fire in the hole.
Right.
And, but those were 2 spotting rounds.
Wow.
And then the next thing we're getting freaking bracketed.
Wow. That's crazy.
So they had a spotter in the, somewhere with binos watching us and saying, hey, adjust this way and everything, just like we do. They're saying up 20, right, whatever, doing all that kind of stuff exactly like we do to them.
Wow.
And so we definitely were dealing with some pretty experienced elements on my first deployment. And so that one was a little bit more Wild West, that's for sure.
Huh. So you deployed with the same unit both times you went?
Yeah, both times were with Weapons Company, with 2-7. I was a machine gunner. I ended up getting attached to a mortar platoon. But since we had arty, we had air, everything like that, basically 24/7 when we were there was no need for, conventional 81 millimeter mortars. And plus they're hard to set up. So they're like, hey, guess what? You guys are going to go on patrols and stuff. So you guys are just going to ride around in trucks and try to go find bad guys and set up checkpoints and, go do this and escort the company commander to go meet the local sheikh or the local police chief or the mayor or whatever. And so we were escorting, people. We were doing regular patrols and everything like that. I mean, I was trained to basically set up my machine gun and guard the mortar pit. That was what I was trained to do. And now they're like, oh yeah, by the way, you need to go up on top of this Humvee and be a bullet magnet for us. And I mean, we didn't have turret shields. We didn't have anything.
Wow.
So, and me being, young and dumb and 18 years old, I'm rolling around freaking Iraq with no helmet on and stupid crap like that because it was too hot and just
too cool for
I don't
school.
even get how we, yeah, basically.
Wow.
It was pretty nuts. That's for sure.
Yeah. Was there a difference in tasking between the two deployments, or were they very similar?
That they were actually night and day difference. So kind of like how I described where we were doing with a lot more direct action stuff. Guys actually trying to go toe to toe with us and doing ambushes and, things like that. You ended up with more of the insurgency element, foreign fighters and things like that when we went round 2.
Okay.
So you had a lot more sniper tactics. You had a lot more IED attacks. You had a lot more, you know, sitting there and wondering what the heck is going on and why you're there type stuff. I mean, you didn't have time to think on deployment one, whereas deployment two, there were times where there was nothing going on, and then it would be exciting for like 2 or 3 days, and then there would be nothing, and then there would be an IED, and then nothing, and then a suicide bomber, and then nothing.
Right.
So it just kind of went back and forth, and you had to be a lot more on your toes too. I mean, because on the second deployment, they were doing a lot more like human shield stuff and
Mm.
things like that. And I think that was actually one of the hardest things to deal with, aside from guys dying and whatnot, is just never knowing who the good guys were. There were no
Yeah.
real lines. There was no that they dressed like civilians. They did all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
All that jazz, and so it became a lot harder.
Hmm.
It was a lot more psychological warfare on us. I
Sure.
mean, don't get me wrong. Every once in a while, they'd try to shoot at us and everything, but it was just that psychological stuff. And then when they did hit us, they usually tried. It almost always seemed like it was around a holiday, like they just wanted to give you a big fu.
Sure.
Around Christmas or around Thanksgiving. I mean, they know when our holidays are. They got Google. And they know what we celebrate, and they know that we're wishing that we were home. And then the next thing you know, an IED's going off and blowing you up, or you're getting shot at, or ambushed, or whatever, or a
Yeah.
sniper, shoots somebody in the back, any number of those things. And so it just kind of became a lot harder. And I go through the first deployment, never get touched, and the second deployment is when I finally had my first experience directly firsthand with an IED.
Mm.
And we were actually responding to an ambush of one of our sister squads in another platoon. We were actually only about a click out, give or take, and so we're going to help them out because they're under ambush and everything. And then the next thing we know, right before we get onto the hardball road, there's orange, I feel heat, and then it's black. And then I wake up
Mm.
and the guns just twisted, pointed straight up in the air, and just like, what the hell just happened?
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
and everything's just moving in slow motion but fast, and it's you know what's going on, but you don't, and then you're getting filled in like, dude, did you know that you did this? And it's like, what? Because your brain's blocking all kinds of stuff out. It's just pure adrenaline that you're going on, and
Sure.
it was just it was surreal. I mean, really don't even remember a whole lot. Like, most of what I've gotten has been pieced in from like the guys that were behind me in the other Humvees and stuff like that. Because I have some images in my head of things,
Hmm.
but like the timeline doesn't quite mess up or match up and things like that. And you just end up in a situation where it's just totally bizarre and crazy. And so they're kind of filling in the gaps for you
Right.
on things that happened. And it was just a crazy experience. And by the end of the day, we'd actually lost two of our Marines
Mm.
um, from our sister squad because we couldn't make it there in time. Um,
Right.
and I mean, like a click, you're about 1,000 yards away. It's not far. They were at one end of their AO where they were supposed to be patrolling. We were on the other end, where we were supposed to be patrolling. So we were pretty close. We were on the edges of each other's respective maps, close to each other.
Right.
I mean, we literally saw the smoke coming up when the IED got triggered the ambush for them.
Hmm.
And so it was, and it was this helplessness,
Yeah.
because, you're so close, but you're so far away. We've got a vehicle that's down blocking the dirt road. We had a berm on one side of us, and then we had a ditch on the other. And it was one of those wider, deeper ditches where a Humvee can't just, hop over unless it's going at a straight run.
Sure.
But we had the berm on the other side, so you can't do a straight run to hop it and get around. So the guys literally had to backtrack the other trucks behind us to find another way to get back up onto the hardball. And then they're dealing with me and my truck, you know, and you know, there's our guys that are hurting and stuff. And then, you know, we can't really go and assist until we can get our site secure.
Right. Right.
And so things ended up getting delayed. And so, yeah, 2 guys ended up passing away because of that. We believe one of them ended up killed on impact, but the other guy, he was from talking to a couple of my buddies in the other squad, he was at least alive and kicking for a little bit, just hurt. And
Sure.
we couldn't get the site secured in time to get an air in. And then the guys in my truck, I was the one that was the most okay. Took a little bit of shrapnel, nothing too serious. I ended up getting like an involuntary labret piercing. Ended up piercing my lip about right there. Got some general peppering. The one day that I decided to wear my shoulder pads, they got blown off. So thankfully I was wearing those.
Right.
I ended up with a pretty good concussion. It ended up tearing out like probably good, all the shrapnel from the engine. Cause that's where, the IED was. It ended up tearing out probably, I don't know, like a 3-inch, gash in my helmet. Just all this stuff. But somehow, like I didn't really get touched otherwise, but I had other guys in the truck that ended up pretty hurt. And a couple of them actually had to get air medevaced out. So, but thankfully survived.
Yeah.
We managed to secure a landing zone and everything. And even though he had a pretty good laceration, we had a killer corpsman. Doc Hickman was the coolest dude on the face of the planet and just way skilled. And he basically ran up. It was my driver. He had an artery severed. My doc, he ran up on us. I'm sitting there screaming for the corpsman, and he helps me get my driver Dazzo out of his flak jacket and everything, and just blood everywhere. And so he recognizes that there's clearly an arterial bleed. He manages to quickly locate it and everything, and he ends up stuffing everything that he can in there, and basically duct tapes his arm up against his side as tight as he possibly can to basically create a compress, because it was it was the brachial right up in the armpit where the heavy bleeding was.
Okay, sure.
And so that had slowed it down enough to where he was able to make it to the medevac. So brilliant corpsman.
Wow.
He ended up getting Navy commendation, I think, for that.
Oh yeah. That's crazy.
But yeah, and I mean, you originally had seen me, online, hearing a song that I wrote, and some of that's actually, part of that day. There's a line in the song where I saw my best friend dying in my arms. It was talking about my driver.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't die, but he was dying.
Right.
Thankfully, he survived. Multiple surgeries later, all that kind of jazz, and living a successful life. But
yeah,
there was some homage paid in that song. As you mentioned at the beginning, metalhead, and play with my brother and my dad, and I struggled a lot with post-traumatic stress disorder from some of the stuff. And I found that one of the easiest ways to talk about it for me was actually to write about it. And I'd always had, kind of a musical angle with things. And, so I was able to kind of use that as my outlet to help me process some of what happened. And not everything ends up making it to the cutting floor and everything like that. But my dad, he had written some pretty killer guitar licks. And Dax, hush. Sorry, my dog.
Yeah.
But when I heard it, I actually had written some stuff from before, more of a poetry fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, Dad, I'm going to send you some lyrics. Tell me what you think. And so I sent them over to him and everything. And he was just like, those fit perfectly. I mean, he's really good at arranging, things around the music. And so he did just kind of a basic kind of vocal demo of kind of where, the vocals could go as the lyrics. And we ended up being able to formulate the song that I ended up naming after my squad called 3 Bravo.
Right.
And the cool thing is, darn it, can you still hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
I probably only have a couple more minutes left. So we're going to have to wrap this up. My laptop is a piece of junk, unfortunately.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
But yeah, I just got the notification that we are down to a couple percent.
Okay.
But what I wanted to do for you, since you were kind of gravitating towards, the whole, kind of what I did with Filth, is I wanted to debut this song 3 Bravo for, you and the people who listen to what you guys do.
Yeah.
Just so that you guys can kind of hear. And, if any of your listeners that are veterans out there, kind of wonder how they can help process things, I encourage them highly to, go ahead and, write some of this stuff down, and you never know where it can go.
Sure.
And that's just kind of what I would recommend as a possible avenue. And you guys are actually getting kind of an exclusive, because this actually is not set to officially release until February 3rd. Because I felt that this story just really needed to be told. And so you guys are going to get to hear it first before everybody else. So I'm pulling it up right now. Give me 2 seconds. lives of our brothers. Our lives are forever changed. A toast to our brothers fallen. For you accepted the highest calling. In your honor, we live on. You may be lost, but never forgotten.
All right, and as is common, we had some issues, but we're back and ready to rumble. So I'm a little grateful because that song was, as I was telling you, Craig, that song was pretty heavy. So it was nice to actually have a little uh, break in time there and kind of reassess.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough
So
one. I mean, even writing that song, with my dad and my brother, it was a little bit rough, but it was just something that I felt needed to be done. Especially, the lines where it's talking about, two more Marines guarding heaven's gates, and talking about
mm,
those guys that we lost that day. Just wanted to be able to try to pay them some homage. Where the those of us who come home, we try to live our lives the best that we can, and in a way, we're really
right.
trying to do it in honor of them. And so, yeah, it was definitely a hard song
Hmm.
to record and everything, but just felt it needed to be done.
Yeah. That's yeah.
But yeah, just to kind of segue into the
Hmm.
other song a little bit that we released, the one that you were first drawn into. It hasn't been released yet. It'll be
Yeah.
with the full album when we release that, coming up here in April. That one,
Okay.
I just want to kind of touch a little bit towards the end of that, and if folks want to kind of get a little preview of it, it's not a mastered version. But I do have it up on our SoundCloud. You just have to look up 3 Bravo and just look for our logo. It's literally just a 3 and a B, pretty easy to find. But towards the end of that song,
Yeah.
there's a little thing where it talks about I'm talking and basically tell Pete, kind of address the Marines and soldiers, sailors, anybody who's listening, you know, um, just to let them know that they're not alone and that we're all kind of feeling that pain
Hmm.
together. And, one of the reasons why I kind of chose to go that direction was just to kind of hopefully remind everybody, that's in the veteran community that, when we were all deployed, you had somebody that was always watching your back, whether it was a battle buddy, whether it was your fire team, whether it was your squad, you always had somebody with you.
Hmm.
And um, just like we had somebody with us there, we need to have somebody with us as we're in the civilian world, whether that's your VA
Hmm.
team,
Yeah.
your wife, husband, whatever significant other you may have if you're not quite married yet, your children, your parents, a counselor, whatever you've got to do. You still need to have that connection where somebody's got your back. In one case, for me, I actually got connected with the Semper Fi Fund, which is a really great organization. If you look them up,
Hmm.
they do a lot of kind of getting Marines back together from their units. So you can also get back with your brothers as well. A couple of years ago, they did a reunion for my company. that I served with weapons company, and we were able to kind of pick up that bond that we had, and it was almost like, we didn't all go our separate ways all over the country. We were all sitting there, and they do a lot of really great activities, where you're able to bond together again as brothers. And also they give you resources while you're there, to direct you. And they've got counselors there to help guide some of the stuff if you still haven't quite navigated that VA process yet. So just a really great resource is Semper Fi Fund. And then they've also expanded to other branches as well. There's kind of a little offshoot of it called America's Fund. Really great organization that's out there helping vets, reconnect with each other, get the services that they need. I know they do some rehabilitation stuff, just all kinds of things. And then a number of years ago, I actually ended up homeless, and they actually helped us with things like me getting some interview clothing to be able to go in and interview for jobs. Just a few Walmart gift cards and things like that, just to kind of help out, doing what they can. They obviously can't take care of everybody, but they do try to help where they're able. And so it is really a great resource. I can't remember the website offhand, but literally if you go onto Google and you look up Semper Fi Fund, you can find these guys and get in touch with them, and definitely recommend that for people. But ultimately, you've got to find a way to heal, whether it's writing music, whether it's, getting with your counselor, whether it's even getting out into the outdoors. To give a little bit of a backstory on why I'm really, really adamant about this, back in about 2009, went through a really rough patch. This was shortly after I'd busted my knee, and I didn't quite know whether my Marine Corps career was. And then the woman that I was with at the time, she decided that she was going to be done. I didn't know if I was going to be going to Afghanistan with the guys that I've been training with. And then I also lost the job. And so with all these things, kind of happening all at once, we ended up with a situation where I wasn't able to really, mentally keep things at bay. It's almost like the pressure in the dam just built up so much. Then I started getting all the flooding with things like, the flashbacks, bad memories, panic attacks, all this kind of stuff. You're dealing with so much all at once, the floodgates open. And I ultimately ended up in a situation where I made an attempt on my own life. And so that's why I'm so adamant about, finding a way for, these young men and women that have seen, war to be able to reach out and find some help. Because I was almost one of those 22 a day statistics. And I've lost too many of my brothers that I served with that have also become those statistics. And so that's why I put these messages in what I'm writing. And I encourage, them to at least write down some of their story. Not necessarily where it took me a long time to be comfortable telling any of it. And so I get that end, but they need to be where they can at least start releasing that pressure valve. And the only way that you can do it is to get that memory out, to start to process it. It's uncomfortable. You're going to face some things that you don't like. You're going to face some things that you don't want to remember. I still don't want to remember most of them, but at least now it's at a point where I'm not, freaking out to the point where, there's suicidal ideation, and things like that. There's unconscious thoughts that happen. There are triggers that happen that you can't control. But by releasing some of that pressure, it's just like small earthquakes that happen, where rather than having a gigantic, 9-point on the Richter scale, you're getting these little 2s and 3s that are just kind of releasing that valve so you don't have that big one. And so that's why I really encourage veterans to go out there and find their avenue. Now, if anybody of your followers does want to kind of follow along with things that I talk about, because I do talk about a lot of these subjects on my social media. One of the best resources
Yeah.
out there is actually my Twitter account, and it's the handle is at Bowden on base. So just BOWDEN on base, BASS. And
Yep.
anybody can reach out to me. And if you're not comfortable telling your story or talking publicly, my DMs are open. You know, I've been there for a couple of my Marines. I've been there for just some random people that I saw that were struggling. You know, I've been referred by family, friends to try to help out with other veterans and stuff. So we've got to be there for each other. And that's really what it's about. We've got to get each other six. And so I just want to offer that to your listeners. If they want to follow along with some of my complain about the government stuff and see some pictures of the home cooking that I do, and, you know, just complain about
Right.
traffic or whatever. But then I also do share some of these resources that I found as well, just periodically, so that people know that there's options out there. And then, like I said, my DMs are open. If you're a veteran, you can always get a hold of me.
Yeah. I'm always impressed by that. So many vets, will have open DMs, and it's real common to, lock your account or have closed DMs just because people don't want to be bothered. But there's so many vets that, yeah, like you're saying, that brotherhood there and the desire to reach out and have each other's back. That I'm always impressed by that. It's like putting your phone number on the internet to a certain extent, and it just, you never know what kook might call you or who you could help, just at the
Yeah.
random whoever contacts you. And yeah, it's great.
Well, and the thing too,
It's meaningful.
a lot of guys that I served with, if they decided to stay in, they're coming up on their 20s. They're coming up on their retirement time.
Right.
And one of the things that I noticed that was pretty common as a trend, and this is something that they need to kind of mentally prepare for, is once you get time, you're so busy when you're constantly training, constantly working, all those kind of things. Once you have a little bit more time, and I mean, you don't have time if you're infantry, you just don't. You retire infantry, you've been working 15-hour days for 20 years, you know, and
Right.
but once you kind of get into that settled down, kind of deal where you're retired and got more free time, that's when the brain really starts kicking in. A lot of my brain kick in beyond the floodgates was after I busted my knee. I wasn't in that operation tempo. I wasn't able to work the job that I was currently working because, as I had
Sure.
mentioned earlier, I was in the reserves, but I had a full time job. But you bust your knee, you're not going to be doing anything. I was security, so I can't patrol,
Right.
around or anything, and so you start to have those brain waves start cycling some of that stuff through that you've been too busy to really think about. And so it's just something that a lot of these guys that are coming up on retirement need to kind of keep on the back burner in the back of their mind, and understand that, you're about to have time and some floodgates might start opening. And so keep your brothers in mind to reach out to, because especially guys that you served with that got out before you, because we've got resources. We've already been through a lot of the grind, and don't be too macho or man enough to where you think it isn't going to happen to you, because it very well could.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that kind of leads into one question I like to ask everybody. Um, what would your advice be to a 16 or 17-year-old kid who said they're planning on joining the military and wanted your advice?
Um, be prepared for hard days. I mean, if you're really dead set on joining, make sure that you're getting some honest feedback. I'd honestly talk maybe to a veteran, in your family, and, just kind of let them know, hey, I'm thinking about joining the Army, or I'm thinking of joining the Marines or Air Force or whatever, and just kind of talk to them and ask them
Hmm.
what they think. But understand, it doesn't matter what branch you're going to go into. Boot camp's hard. You're going to have rough days in boot camp. It's likely going to be your first time away from home. It's likely going to be, well, I should say it's for an extended period of time away from home. It's going to be, you're not really going to get a sass back. I mean, if you've got a little bit of an attitude with your parents, you're not going to have that opportunity with a drill instructor or a training sergeant or, any of that kind of stuff. That they're going to get right up in your grill and
Right.
they're going to thrash you. Get physically prepared, start doing your physical fitness routine, before you're in boot camp, because you don't want to be sucking wind. That's just one more obstacle that you'll have to overcome. Also, learn some of the knowledge that in history of the branch that you're joining. They're going to be doing some of that stuff anyways. I mean, I can't tell you how many times when you're marching or, getting ready for the bed and lights out, where they're having you doing little ditties and things to remember every little thing that ever happened in the Marine Corps or, whatever branch you decide to join. That they're going to be having you memorize all this, so you might as well get a head start. And understand it's not like the movies. That there's, especially if you're going to go into a combat arms job, in reality, even the most accurate movies, that they're not going to be as accurate as you think. I mean, just a clear example that I can think of to kind of give a good idea for any young men or young women out there. Just in movies, when there's an explosion, it's this big kaboom. You get that Dolby surround sound, whatever. It's vibrating your couch and everything like that. Like you're hearing that boom. When you're in an explosion, it's more like you're getting this pop kind of thing, and then you've got ringing in your ears a little bit, but you can't really hear anything. The explosion, pressure pops your eardrum so quick that you're not getting that big boom. Now, maybe if you're a half mile away, you're going to hear a big boom, but if you're right there in that blast area, it's going to pop. So what you see in the movies isn't necessarily going to be what you see in the military. And the last thing I'd say is, the last thing that I'd, say is be prepared to be bored. There's going to be days, where you're waking up to go to the armory for a training event at 3:30 in the morning, and you guys aren't going to be stepping off until 10 o'clock in the morning. And so you're going to get your rifle and you're going to be sitting on a pack and hurrying up and waiting, for a couple hours before you go anywhere. Deployments are going to be the same way, where you're standing in lines everywhere and weighing things for hours on end and wondering when your plane's going to take off. And so just be prepared to be bored. There's going to be white space days where literally nobody knows what's going on. Company commander doesn't have anything planned, and the battalion commander didn't have anything planned. And, your squad leader, he's MIA, probably at some class or something. Your team leader's off getting drunk somewhere. So you're going to be sitting there, what am I going to do? So be prepared to be bored and how to handle that boredom. With me, I read books or, studied up on some of my MOS knowledge, just to be a little bit better at my job, or do one of my classes so I could advance in some rank. You got to be able to utilize your time, because where things are pretty regimented in the military, there's going to be times where you ain't got nothing to do.
Right. Yeah. One of the inherent flaws of a bureaucracy is sometimes you don't have anything to do.
Well, yeah. And then you're going to have paperwork stand down days.
Realities, I guess.
Yep. I mean, you'll have paperwork, stand down days where you're going to have to wait your turn, but they have everybody go wait their turn, but there's only like 6-7 clerks and there's 200 of you. So you're going to be sitting there for a while, and they've got to go through your whole packet to make sure that every I is dotted, every T is crossed, that you sign all the right forms and all that kind of stuff. And you're just going to be standing in a line all day. And there will be days like that. That's just the reality of the military.
Yeah.
wish that was not the case. I wish it could just be ranges and oh,
Just unleashing belts of ammo downrange all day. That'd be the life.
yeah. We had a couple of towards the end of ranges where we'd have extra ammunition, and your choices are you can find a way to get rid of it, or you can count all the ammo and turn it back in. And so basically, everybody loads up on everything they can, and we'll just go ham on everything. Because it's a lot easier to do that. And we start getting creative with some of the ranges and things like, okay, we're going to have competitions. I remember we had this one balloon competition where our squad leaders, I don't even know how the heck they brought them out or what, if this was pre-planned or somebody just had balloons, and I don't know why they'd have balloons, but whatever. They blew them up and put them out as targets, and then we had competitions, little shoot offs, um, you know, one-on-one or whatever, and kind of did it tournament style, and just doing the kind of quick draw shooting and stuff where you just kind of look over and see a quote bad guy, and then pop off a couple rounds, and whoever can pop the balloons first on their target wins.
Right.
So you'll have some fun days too. I mean, it's not all boredom.
Sure. Huh. That's pretty neat. Yeah. That's I appreciate the insight, your openness. It's pretty meaningful.
Well, you've got to look out for the younger generations, and like I said, you got to look out for some of the old timers too, because sometimes it just takes you retiring, and then everything's coming back. So, and it don't matter what war you fought in, or if you never deployed into a war. You could have been a cook and ended up, getting really burned or something. You still served. I got to eat my beans, so you still did your job, so I could do my job. We're
Right.
all veterans, and that's the way that it is. We're all willing to square our hand. And frankly, once you sign that contract, you might have signed up to be a cook or a trumpet player or a clerk over in the admin office, whatever. But at the end of the day, if they need another rifle, you sign the contract, and they can send you to be another rifle. So we all take that risk. And frankly, even the quote pogue jobs, personnel other than grunt, that they still, that we still need people out there to fix trucks. We still need people out there to, make sure that we get our paychecks. And if we didn't get our paychecks, to make sure that we have a way to get our paychecks. Everybody's got to go at some point. Now you might be a little bit safer because you stay on a base, get a little bit more time to play some Xbox or something like that if you can find one, or get a mini DVD player and watch some movies or whatever. But there's still mortar risks and all that kind of stuff, so you still face some of the same stuff. I mean, we had a guy that got attacked going to deliver the laundry. He was an admin guy, and they were driving from our little fob over to Camp Fallujah, the kind of main base where all the laundry facilities were, and they took a little bit of small arms fire. So, I mean, stuff happens, even if you're in one of the, quote, safe jobs, stuff happens.
Sure.
So, just the way that it is. Huh. You're in somebody else's country, so.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Shocker.
Yeah.
Not everybody's happy necessarily.
No, not really. I mean, and most people, they're probably going to treat you more as just an annoyance. I mean, think of like a cop checkpoint, on a holiday weekend. There's going to be days like that where you're just screening cars, and then they'll tell you to, search every car that's colored blue. And so You're going to pull every blue car that comes through a site and search it so that it's more random, and or hey, search everything that's a Toyota, or just whatever they decide to come up with, whatever your squad leader's doing for the disruption patrols, and so you're really an annoyance. You're like that DUI cop that's saying, I need you to pull over into Bay 3, and they're going to give you, check your eyes real quick to make sure that you ain't been drinking and really what we're doing is we're just seeing if you're nervous and, stuff like that. I mean,
Sure.
we're an annoyance in a lot of cases. Like a lot of people don't really hate us, but they don't really like us either. And you're going to have people that outright hate you. I mean, you're going to get stuff thrown at you. You're going to get stuff, words that you've learned because everybody tends to learn swearing dang near first in another language.
Right.
So you're going to know that you're getting called some pretty dirty things. You know, and there's going to be people that want to kill you. But on the flip side of that, you're going to be able to play soccer with kids. You're going to be able to, do a medicine clinic, a pop-up medicine clinic that you're going to guard, where people can come in and get, kind of the day clinic style treatment. So like if they have, need some mole skin or for a blister, or they need, maybe some stitches because they lacerated their hand, or, a baby's got a fever, whatever have you. So there's going to be plenty of good too. I mean, I remember one time we got to be there. I can't remember when it was, but there was like a hospital opening or a clinic opening or something like that. I remember that it was a Red Crescent of some sort. They do Red Crescent instead of Red Cross. Over in the Middle East, obviously, because they're Islamic. But it was like some kind of clinic or something like that. And, we got to be there for the opening of that. And we've been, securing and kind of babysitting that site, not really knowing what it was. It's just, hey, you guys need to make sure, no dudes come and try to put anything in the wet concrete or anything like that, because it might be explosive. And so we basically were babysitting concrete as the foundation was going up and stuff. And, sometimes that's the job. And then you find out, hey, it was a clinic that we were guarding. And now these people have another medical clinic. There's kind of a little bit of a duality with everything. I'm typically kind of anti-war with a lot of things that I talk about. But at the same note, there was some good. It wasn't all bad. I mean, do I feel like we probably shouldn't have been there a lot of the times? I know that I'd have 23 of my friends still alive if we wouldn't have been there. And I know that there's, Iraqis that would still be alive if we wouldn't have been there. But at the same note, maybe that clinic never would have been there,
Sure.
So, and there's no way to really tell. And we can what if, the past all we want. The fact is it's happened. One of my biggest things is to try to make sure that while there's young men and women who are willing to swear up their hand and swear that oath to serve, and be willing and ready, I try my darndest to make sure that nobody has to walk in my combat boots again. So I do what I can to try to hold politicians accountable for some of the stuff that they do. The way that I feel politicians are a lot of times is they kind of are looking at the spreadsheet, but you're looking at your friend. You're a number on the spreadsheet that they're looking at, but it's your friend that died. Yeah. It's, a guy that you knew since boot camp. It's a guy that you went to high school with that you found out was, killed a couple cities over, For you, it's not a number on a spreadsheet. And even with, the bad guys, however you want to call them, the insurgency, whatever, they're farmers. They got families too, that they're normal people. And frankly, there's times where I don't blame them for trying to kill me, because I'd have tried to do the same thing to them if they were over here. If they were sitting there and, they were occupying where I live and, say, I don't know, in whatever firefight they get in with whatever insurgent faction, and one of my kids got killed, I'm going to be pissed off. You shouldn't be here in the first place. So yeah, I'm going to pick up a gun and I'm going to go and try to kill some of you. So I really can't blame them for their stuff. And, actually, to go back, there is one more piece of advice thinking of that.
Yeah.
To that 16, 17, 18-year old considering joining, I would say don't ever underestimate the people that you may end up facing. That's probably the most
Mm,
important piece of advice if you're going to go into any kind of combat arms. So your tankers, your artillery guys, your infantry, that kind of stuff, those jobs where the metals meet in the meat, don't ever underestimate. You're going to hear a lot of talk, trying to use some kind of maybe racial slurs or whatever to kind of dehumanize and demean the person and people that you may end up facing. But the reality is that they're an intelligent human being and they're going to adapt to everything that you adapt to. As an
mm,
example,
yeah.
when we first started dealing with IEDs, they basically just dig a hole and put a bomb in it and then cover it up. So we adapted and we started looking for fresh dirt. So they started sticking them in donkeys, corpses and stuff. And so now we had to watch out for donkey corpses. And then
Right.
it was trash cans. And so, and then they stopped using hard wires and started using garage remotes. So we started using, frequency jammers so they couldn't
Mm,
use, remotes. And, it's this constant back
sure.
and forth. They're smart, they're capable, they're human beings just like us. And so don't ever underestimate them, respect them. That you have to respect your enemy. As weird as that sounds, because you're going to hear contrary to everything that you're told by drill instructors, by probably every commander that you're going to have, every squad leader you're going to have. Most of them are going to tell you about how they're stupid and like I said, maybe throw in some racial slurs,
Mm,
whatever. But the reality is they're smart human beings, and you might only be seeing some of the dumb ones that were trained a little bit. The really smart ones you probably aren't ever going to see because they're smart enough that they get other people to do their stuff. But they're the
sure.
real masterminds that know how to build complex bombs and all that kind of stuff. So, um, don't ever underestimate them. They're
Mm,
going to plan. They're going to adjust. They're going to adapt to what you do. They're going to watch you to see how you react to situations, everything like that. So don't ever underestimate the people over wherever you end up going, if you end up going anywhere.
mm, yeah. Yeah, it's a good a good line. Good reminder for life in general, but yeah, that's pretty applicable.
Yeah, it's a lesson I wish that I would have been taught. To be perfectly honest, I didn't learn to appreciate
Hmm.
the culture and the Iraqi people until I got up towards my second deployment. And I wish that I would have, and I wish that I would have had kind of a little bit more of that appreciation and understanding and respect. And it wasn't just this dumb, jarhead, 18-year-old that is just hard charging and young and dumb. A little bit more maturity, maybe
Right.
something like that. But so if there's any lessons, it's some of those that I went over. But respect the enemy. They're smarter
Hmm.
than you think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you got
Yeah, I
anything
appreciate
else?
it. No, I was gonna say, any last thoughts or comments or exhortations?
Oh, man, I could talk military talk for days on end. I'm still telling fresh stories, some old ones too, to my wife these days. You know, it's a part of my life, and it helped shape me into who I am. And I don't think that there's really any
Hmm.
dishonor in wanting to serve. Politicians, maybe they have a little bit of the dishonor, but I don't think that these young men and women who legitimately want to serve their countries, and I'd say the same for any other country, even ones we fought, even ones we're fighting now, even ones we may fight in the future, they have the same kind of drive, and they're going to come from similar backgrounds. They're going to come from similar homes. There's going to be a parallel you somewhere out there that you may end up
Hmm.
facing someday. And so I have the utmost respect for that warrior class of person that's willing to stand up and say that I am going to defend the people that I love. Um, and, you know, there's admiration in that. And sure, cultures may be a little bit different. You might believe in a different God. Um, you may speak a different language, all those kinds of things. But when you really get down to it, any other day, if there's not a fight, you'd probably be drinking a beer in a bar with that guy because he's exactly your kind of people. Um,
Right.
that's something I truly feel. That there's a lot of talk about the what might happen with this whole Russia situation and stuff. And one thing I like to kind of remind myself is that those Russian boys, they want to go home too. They
Yeah.
don't want to be there any more than anyone else, but they're doing their job. And so it's important that we don't dehumanize, in my opinion, the people that we may end up fighting, that we are fighting, and that we have fought. That they're human beings. That's something that I think is missed a lot, and a lot. Whether you're pro-war, whether you're anti-war, whether you're whatever, however you stand on things. I think we lose the humanity of the situation a lot, and you know,
Hmm.
hopefully, some of what we talked about kind of adds a little bit of that humanity back in there, and people can realize that we're all just trying to do our best and get through this life and make it one day at a time. And some of us, unfortunately, are going to end up fighting each other because some other people that aren't going to face it decided that they don't like each other, and you signed up. So,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
but I definitely would encourage people to also check out my band. We do have kind of a little bit of militaristic level kind of songs. A lot of the stuff that is drawn, it's actually drawn from some of my experience. I mean, we talked about Filth. They got to listen to Three Bravo, um,
Hmm.
and those are two examples. We've got another one that's called coming out here soon. That's called 2000 Suns. That's coming out next month, I do believe.
Hmm.
And that one's a war story, not mine per se, but I did use some of my perspective to help write that one. I've got one that's called No Quarter, and that one is actually kind of an interesting song that's coming up with the full album drop. This one is um, kind of what I talked about, where we're all kind of dealing with the same stuff. So both me and my brother are vocalists on this one, and we're kind of going back and
Hmm.
forth through this song, basically trying acting as if we're the commanders of troops, and we're trying to amp up our guys throughout this song, and we're just
Hmm.
kind of sitting there saying a lot of the same things. These guys are going to kill you. They're never going to let you have a moment to breathe. So you need to give them no moment to breathe. And then, my brother will come in with something similar,
Sure.
and we kind of do this back and forth thing. And, it's a cool fight song, but at the same note, it's kind of got that subtext in there where we're kind of talking about how, we're all kind of the same, in that military culture, whether, you're on this side or that side,
Hmm.
we're all kind of the same dudes. One of the really cool things that
Yeah.
I got to experience in that line was actually getting to hang out with some of the former Republican Guard of the Iraqi army that signed back up once the army came back in, and just kind of chill with these guys. And a year ago, we
Huh.
were trying to kill each other, and now we're sitting there having tea in the afternoons together, telling old war stories and stuff, and the stupid crap all grunts
Wow.
do. We had this one dude, his name was Big Show. At least that's what we called him, because the dude was like 6'6", like 280 pounds, professional bodybuilder. Used to freaking lift with like Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day. Fought in the Gulf War as a young enlistee. Made his way up the ranks. He used to be a sergeant
Wow.
major and everything. And he was like, yeah, I learned not to fight the Marines when I was in the Gulf War. So when you guys were coming up on our positions during the, '03 invasion, we just kind of move around and, go find some Army guys to mess with and, stuff like that. Um, it was interesting because we actually got to see a different side and that just goes back to if it was any other day, we'd probably be having a beer together. It's just kind of that mentality of
Yeah.
what a warrior is. We respect each other and the capabilities. And, frankly, I wouldn't want to go toe to toe with Big Show because, like I said, like 6'6" or some crap like that, 200 some odd, like 80 pounds. And he actually would show the
Big
picture
boy.
off every friggin' chance he got of him with Arnold. Every chance. And I mean, who wouldn't?
Right.
I mean,
Right. Of
you're
course.
competing in, Mr. Universe or whatever competition it was, and of course you're going to show that stuff off. But yeah, I mean, there's some cool stuff that is out there, and if there's one thing that I miss, it's that kind of stuff. I mean, yeah, I don't like getting shot at. Yeah, I don't like getting
Yeah.
blown up. Yeah, you definitely don't want to see a friend die or get hurt. All that kind of stuff really sucks. But the people that you meet, I mean, they're more than just friends. I mean, it's so cliche, but I mean, it's a band of brothers. It really is. I mean, the guys that I served with, I still talk to all the time. And it may not be as frequent as when we were all in the barracks together and stuff like that. But, you hit people up all the time like, hey, how's your wife and kids? Or, hey, when you coming down to Utah? Or, they'll be like, hey, Craig, when you coming down to Michigan? Things like that. And then we have reunion stuff, like I said earlier. And then you get that bond back again. And it's like you never left. You're that 18, 19-year-old kid again. And y'all are playing shenanigans. I could have stories for days on shenanigans. But those are the things that you don't regret, but you definitely miss. No matter how hard I tried, whether it was involvement in politics, whether it was, different places that I worked, church, whatever, I've never found that level of trust, of brotherhood anywhere. I mean, up down without a doubt that dude is literally going to do anything for you. So it's just that's probably the things that I miss the most. Getting to meet cool people. When you're overseas, getting to try different foods, getting to learn about the cultures, and that brotherhood, and experiencing it with your brothers, and going through that blood, sweat, and tears, and all that kind of stuff where they they've just got you. So if you're one of those young 16, 17, 18-year-olds and you're looking for that kind of thing, avoid the gangs and go try your shot at becoming a Marine, because you'll definitely find it there.
Yeah, that's great. Appreciate it.
I just realized I trailed off as I ramble and do, especially once I start talking about the good old days.
Fine.
I had started off saying that folks should go check out my band.
Yeah.
So the website, and this has like all of our social media links, all that kind of stuff. So YouTube, Twitter, all that kind of stuff is 3, and that's the number 3. So 3bravoband.com, and it'll link to everything we've got. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Uh, I don't know. There's probably some other weird, obscure stuff out there that I probably signed us up for and linked and forgot about. But you'll be able to find everything there, as well as get some previews of music that's coming out, all that kind of stuff. Um, and if you forget that, then you can just look up 3 Bravo and then just look for that 3 in the B logo. It's bright white letters on black background.
Sure.
So you can't miss us. I made it really simple, stupid. I'm a Marine. I eat crayons. So, you got to keep it easy for us. Um, but yeah, it's pretty easy.
3bravoband.com.
Yep. 3bravoband.com. And you'll be able to find us out. And then hopefully maybe someday we'll be in your town. And if you're a veteran and you happen to see that we got a show coming, let me know ahead of time and we'll see if we can't get you like backstage or something like that. I'm always down for a good old veteran talk or, doing a little toast. I don't really drink anymore, but, I'll have a water. You can have a beer. Beer will be on me. Wait until I'm famous though, because, got to be able to afford that.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, that's
right.
my story in a nutshell.
It's coming. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Definitely appreciate you.
I was thinking that
I believe we were talking.
Yeah, I was going to say the version of Filth that you have on SoundCloud, it's almost like an acoustic version. It'd be kind of neat for non-metal heads like me to hear an album like that. That'd be pretty neat, I think.
So there is actually a lot of acoustic guitar in that one, which is really cool about it. We kind of did quite a bit softer on that song. It was obviously on purpose. We kind of wanted to. One of the things we try to do with our music is connect with the emotion of what's being talked about. So, like with the song 3 Bravo, you've got something that's really high intensity because it's basically a battle scene, so to speak. So you get a little bit more of that, adrenaline, heart pumping, level stuff. But with Filth, it's more of that. This is how I feel, trying to process this stuff. And so we kind of slowed it down a little bit, and it's still heavy. It's got a little bit of electric guitar, but it's got that acoustic guitar, coming in over the top, and it's, just got, it's slowed down tempo a little bit, all that kind of jazz. And we wanted to make sure that we're conveying, the emotion, that the song needs. And interestingly enough, I actually wrote that bass line that started the whole song when I was over in Iraq on one of my buddy's guitars. Just kind of figured out how the bass, and I'm like, hey, this sounds kind of cool. And then I started putting some lyrics down while I was over there. And then after I came home, kind of finished it out with some of the things where it's like, I really got to get some of this stuff out. And so ended up finishing the last half of it. Where it was more, where every time when I go back home, everyone looks at me like I've done something wrong, and it's not that people are looking at you wrong. It's more of the, feeling of almost being an outcast a little bit because it's harder to relate to people in those moments. They didn't experience those kinds of things. While you were off in the desert, sleeping in the dirt and, having, to go without a shower for, 10 days in a row, and using baby wipes, to clean yourself the best you could. They were sipping their Starbucks every day and, life continues on. That's kind of the emotions we wanted to convey with that. And so, you'll get some slower tempo stuff with what we do too. And while we do have some guttural vocals with kind of backing lines and stuff, or maybe to emphasize certain parts, kind of more in your death metal kind of tradition, most of what we try to do is do just really nice, good, clean lyrical stuff because we want you to
Hmm.
feel that emotion. And the great thing about my brother, he's the one that does most of the singing. I do some backing vocals, and I did sing Filth because it was written for my vocal range. And I've got a
Sure.
much deeper voice than my brother. I mean, that dude could hit high notes like no tomorrow. Um, but the great thing about my brother, like when I heard Three Bravo for the first time, on some of the ways that he emoted, it was what I felt when I was there. The one
Sure.
line that really sticks out for me on the way that he sung is the when it's talking about the wake up to the main gun, twisted to the air, um, pierced flesh bites as shots ring clear. See brothers bleeding and cursing in pain. That see brothers bleeding, when he says that line, it gives you almost a gut wrench feeling. Just the way that he kind of
Hmm.
hits the notes and just kind of stretches them. And your listeners will be able to rewind it or whatever. Um, or go subscribe to my Spotify. I'm totally cool with that too, because it's going to be out here in about a week, couple days. No, it'd be a couple days. Wow, time flies. But
Yeah.
you're gonna feel that gut wrench on that part, and then another one when it hits the line of two more Marines now guard heaven's gates. The way that he gets that,
Hmm.
instead of a stomach knot kind of feel like the gut wrench, it's more of a gut sink. Is the way that I feel when
Hmm.
you hear him sing that note, and he just does it so well. And I didn't even find out he could sing until this year, which was totally crazy. But that's another story altogether. But I'm really thankful to my brother. He does the drumming and the vocals for
Hmm.
us. And without my brother, I don't think we would have gotten the song that we did. I mean, I do a lot of the more guttural stuff on that song to kind of give that harsher edge, like on the line "pierced flesh." I kind of do this guttural scream kind of thing because that's the way that it feels when you can actually have, like I mentioned earlier, having that involuntary labret piercing. You can feel this kind of searing pins and needles feeling where it's smaller, all this kind of stuff. And so you kind of get more of
Hmm.
that where it needs a, kind of thing, because that's the way that it feels. And so
Right.
everything
Sure.
we're doing, we're trying to get that emotion across and translate it. And just a little
Hmm.
preview, real quick, and then I'll shut my trap. Um, but I'm working on a new song. This will actually be on our second album, so yay! We're not going to be done after one.
Hmm.
Um, but one of the ones that I'm writing, and I think that a lot of guys and gals might be able to relate to this one a lot. I haven't quite settled on a title yet, but it's going to be something along the lines of like, final letter or last letter home, something along those lines. And I actually
Hmm.
adapted the letters that I had left in my, you know, in my little lockbox that I had under my rack when I was deployed, that had the final letters that would go out to my mom, my dad, my siblings,
Hmm.
um, my wife at the
Right.
time. Um, and I think a lot of people are going to relate with that one if they've deployed, because as far as I know, all the guys that I served with had them, but it was just, a way to kind of impart your last words to your family, whatever advice you had for like a younger sibling, or, in my case, I actually had a child that wasn't even born yet. When I was on my last deployment,
Hmm.
um, my ex-wife was pregnant with my first kid, and um, so I literally wrote a letter to a child that I may never meet. And I think that was
Yeah.
probably the
Yeah.
hardest letter that I wrote, because how do you sum up a lifetime of dad advice, on a couple sheets of paper? Um, and
Yeah. No kidding.
one of the reasons why I chose to start writing that song, and starting to work on the music, actually, now I've actually wrapped up the lyrics. But one of the reasons why I chose to do that is it really does show the humanity. We're not just these robotic automatons that are out there, um, when we're out in combat. I mean, we may seem like we have no emotion and that we're these unthinking, you know, grunts that are out there doing stuff. But the reality is that we understand our mortality quite greatly. And
Hmm.
are, we know that we may be saying goodbye for the last time when we deploy. And so the only way that we can say anything one last time is to have that last letter. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
and so I think that's going to be, hopefully, at least in theory, something that can connect with a lot of people that do these kind of jobs. I mean, I'm sure that firefighters and police officers may even do something similar, because they're in higher risk jobs where they could end up not coming home at the end of shift. So
Hmm.
I think there's, kind of that sentiment. And a lot of people still, they do last wills and testaments, where there's a little read off. So even beyond the military, I think we all kind of want to say at least one more thing to the people that we love.
Thank you for listening to this episode of How I Embraced the Suck. If you enjoyed the show, tell a friend. And as my Girl Scout den mother used to say, stay frosty.
Just didn't have a choice, just compelled.